Hey everyone, this is Brett Favre, Green Bay Packers Super Bowl champion. And you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packers content. Go Pack them.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us, 865-658-5824. Join alongside Tim in Green Bay. We got Jacob the Beard in Wisconsin on the Minnesota border, here to talk some Green Bay Packers tonight. As we had a lot of news really break today, man. We had Gutey's presser, some interesting comments there we'll hit on. We also had a coaching change here right before we went live. We'll mention that. Well, we also got another defensive coach getting interviewed as a DC in different parts of the NFL. All that stuff we're going to hit on, along with some draft talk, prospects, all that good stuff. But before we do, man, I just want to hand it over to you, Tim. I know we got some sad news today, and you growing up in Milwaukee like you did, I'm sure this really hit home for you. I know Bob Uecker, special place in my heart growing up, being a big fan of Major League, and he's just one of the gems of Major League Baseball. That breed that's just dying off, that made the game so fun for me growing up. But you had the floor, Tim, man. It's a sad day with you, right?
Sad day in sports, especially for, baseball, Brewers baseball in particular. Lost a legend, right? Mr. Baseball passed away. 90 years old, though. The Lord blessed us with 90 years of Uke. And called baseball games up until the day he passed. Rest in peace to Bob Uecker, an absolute staple in the sporting world, but especially baseball. And yeah, being a County Stadium kid and growing up in Milwaukee, man, that's the voice of a childhood for a lot of us, childhood and adulthood for a lot of us that were lucky enough. So just want to send our condolences to his family and of course, to the Brewers organization, too, as well. Rest in peace, Bob Uecker. Mr. Baseball, for sure. That's definitely an understatement. That guy exuded everything that was right about that game.
Yeah, definitely. Jacob, you got any memories of Bob Uecker? I don't think you were really a baseball fan, but obviously you knew who the guy was growing up in Wisconsin. He's an absolute living legend, right?
Get up! Get out of here! Go! Yeah, actually, I wasn't a big baseball fan. I was more when I was younger, but I never got the Brewers games because I was so close. I always had to listen to the Twins. But my best friend Brian, who recently passed, his family was obsessed, and they paid for all the holy crap packages for. He would always have that game going, and his dad would listen to like replays on in the garage and stuff like that. So he's Major League, right? The movie.
Oh
yeah.
Like, so that was my biggest, my dad used to love, we'd play Major League.
What was his name on Harry Doyle?
Harry Doyle.
Harry Doyle? Yeah.
He'd get a drink of that Jack and go.
Yeah. So I knew who he was before I knew who he was, kind of thing, if that makes sense. I just didn't quite know how to place it. But yeah, I mean, that's one of those, he's up there in the royalty of announcers, of this Pat Summerall's, John Madden's. He's that for baseball. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah, my first introduction to Uke was as a kid watching Major League. Growing up in Kentucky, we never seen Milwaukee games. That was just something that didn't happen, right? And when you watch Major League, it's like, this dude, that movie is not a tenth as good. You know what I mean? Like, it's literally, when you think of all the great moments from the movie Major League and Major League 2, 90% of them were Bob Uecker.
Yeah.
He made that movie what it was.
And half of those were Uecker just ad-libbing, not even scripted. It was just him being him.
If you guys, and I'm sure you have, if you have not seen Major League and Major League 2, go watch them. And I'm telling you, man, him being drunk in the booth or acting like he was drunk in the booth. And when Willie Mays Hayes and Rick Vaughn get into a fist fight on the field, and literally Uecker wakes up and he starts doing fight commentary. I don't know, Harry. Kind of feels like.
And of course, Major League, filmed on location at Milwaukee County Stadium as well. And I actually remember, being a kid and having the friends and family members that were, trying to get over to the stadium to be an extra in that movie. It was just incredible moment for the city and for baseball in general. But just a legendary spot for Bob Uecker. Of course, no stranger to the cameras, right? I mean, we all remember Mr. Belvedere, right? If you're old enough, Uecker did a little TV acting too, so he wasn't a rookie when it came to getting in front of the camera. That's for sure.
Yeah, but the way he wakes up from that drunken stupor and says, "I don't know, Monty. It looks like Hayes is carrying his left a little low. This could hurt him." Awesome. He was the man. He was up there in the wife beater too. What he had the white on passed out. Oh, it's great,
dude. I gotta rewatch these. I haven't watched those in way too long. I gotta rewatch.
They
them.
hold up, man. They hold up. I think you appreciate them more as you get older. As a kid, you don't understand half the stuff he's saying, and then you get older, you're like, "Oh my god, this is just masterpiece, absolute masterpiece."
I think it's one of those unique films that there's not many that are like classic sports movies that also are the comedies. You know what I mean? You got like Caddyshack, Happy Gilmore,
sure,
yeah,
The Water Boy. You know what I mean? Something like that. But like it's a classic. Maybe Slapshot would be in that genre.
Yep, definitely. All right, so again. Thoughts and prayers go out to the Uecker family and the Milwaukee Brewers family and all the fans. Obviously, like Tim said, 90 years with that dude. What a blessing, right? What a blessing to have him on the face of this earth, to add a little joy to this crazy little place, right? So,
yep.
All right, let's do it, boys. Let's jump in to a little news here. Matt Schneidman had tweeted out from the Brian Gutekunst press conference. I listened to it earlier today, and he said, Brian Gutekunst, quote, "We need to continue to ramp up our sense of urgency. I think it's time we start competing for championships." Now, some people take that and they just kind of roll their eyes. We talked about it, right? With the receiver core in general, like this is just one specific look at the roster. If you try to go out last year and get like a true number one or go spend a bunch of money, you might be stopping the progress of some of these young receivers, right? So I kind of feel like this year was, hey, let's get a really good, solid look at these guys. Now, will they stick with that receiving core? It's possible, right? But at the same time, you know what you've got in this roster, and I feel like Gutey is ready to turn the page and go, okay, let's take one step further into the water, and let's try to put a contender together here this year, right? Not that you wasn't a contender last year. There's a lot of comments he made. Did you guys get a chance to listen to the presser? If you didn't, we've got grabs here that we can hit on for sure. But
I caught like the first 5 minutes, and then I got away. No, I didn't catch it. Did you listen at all, Jacob?
I have not had a chance to really catch up on anything. I worked 10 hours today and just dropped on as soon as I could here.
Gotcha. There was a lot of good nuggets in there, and we're going to get to them. So we'll keep on scrolling through. Also, want to give a shout out to Josh Jacobs, and I love that he tweeted this out. Sergeant Major Kevin Bennett has been a Green Bay fan since 1962 and served 34 years in the U.S. Marine Corps, including 10 overseas deployments and countless combat missions. To honor him and say thanks, I'm joining USAA and the Marine Corps to send Kevin and his wife to the Super Bowl in Nowlin. And salute to service. Pretty cool that Josh Jacobs took a second to tweet that out. I thought that was awesome. So,
as if I needed another reason to love Josh Jacobs, But, well, here we are. Semper Fi. Appreciate that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
he's doing that, man. He's the real deal.
Yeah. And Matt Schneidman tweeted out, Gutekunst says he wants Quay Walker here for the long term, and Devonte Wyatt was the most consistent interior pass rusher. Says both had their best years yet. Decisions on both of their fifth-year options coming
Somebody's
up.
Getting some Krispy Kremes.
First thing I thought of, man. I rolled over earlier and I looked now and went, it kind of feels. Now, watch him not give a fifth-year option either after saying that, right? That's exactly what will happen. But, no, it's listen, he's not going to say negative things in the media, but I also don't think that Gutey is dishonest. If he's got a negative thought, I don't think he's going to say it, right? But I think when he speaks positively, I don't think he's blowing smoke here. I think he does want those guys back. Of course, he wants everybody back. He said that in the presser, too, for the right price, of course, right? So what do you guys think about this? Reading into it here, it kind of sounds like Quay Walker and Devonte Wyatt might be a part of the future here for the right price.
I think they have to be. And the thing is Gutey, there was a time period where everybody was kind of questioning how he ran the team, especially how his draft picks were showing out, especially the early draft picks, the early round ones. But guys, if we take a step back and if we look at some of these drafts and how they panned out, specifically the Rasheed Walker, Sean Ryan, and Zach Tom draft, you add in the Dobbs and Watson there, and and a few of them now it's shown that it might not be year one, it might not be year two, but around year three, you will see like some actual crazy jumps that all of a sudden you start scratching your head thinking, all right, well, if anything, Gutey's flaw may be that he sees guys that are so underdeveloped that it takes a dedication of them, like a good solid 2 to 3 years before he gets to that return on investment. You know what I mean? So, and he's pretty blessed because in this league, I mean, we've seen it. There's not a lot of owners that are willing, or fan bases that are willing to sit around and let guys age on the shelf like a fine wine and then pull them off when they're ready. You know what I mean? They want, it's a give it to me now. It's the not for long, or the not for, what is it you call it? The NFL is the not for long.
Yeah, it stands for not for long.
That's
for sure. First time I ever heard that was Jerry Glanville. He was cussing out a ref on the sideline. He said, "It's the NFL. That stands for not for long. When you keep making calls like that." Good stuff. Tim, what do you think, man? What do you think about Quay Walker and Devonte Wyatt here again? And I seen you popped up, Chris, the guy I've got the bet with there on the Krispy Kreme. Yeah. Listen, this could mean nothing. It really could, right? We know this. What he's saying is he likes them as players. That doesn't mean they're keeping them, right? So
right. I would say this in relation to the bet. All you need is one, right? Yeah. So my money's on at least one of these guys. I think one of them's going to go, and we know through thick and thin, based on how they've stuck with Quay, through that tough rookie year that he had, and then on through his development into last season. So I think they're sweet on their first round guys. We know that, and I think Quay Walker is a big part of that linebacker room going forward. So he would be a guy that I would lean towards. They may do that, but we'll see. Like you said, this could be a big nothing burger. It's still really early, but it is kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I'll say this in Chris's defense, them liking them, we could still avoid the fifth-year options and just extend them, right? If that's the case, old Clayton will be sending 2 dozen Krispy Kreme donuts to Chris in wherever he's hiding at, whatever cave he's in tonight. So, Coach Lynn, Packers news never stops. Go Pack, go! It was a wild day, man. It was kind of like everything just kind of turned loose, and I did my first mock draft earlier today. It was fun, just getting the first glimpse of, okay, where's the depth at? How's this thing? How may it kind of fall into place? I really enjoyed it.
What's the timeline? Have you guys tested the chat? Listened to the viewers. When do people want to start getting into that? Because I'm telling you, man,
yesterday.
I got some time this weekend, and I am going to get my group of. It's going to be my group of human meat missiles. You know what I mean? The next crop. The next crop.
We doing this exercise we've done based around needs. I've already got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, roughly 20 prospects that I've got earmarked like, hey, these are the dudes I'm excited about. So, and I want to give a shout out to, we had mentioned last night that a Patreon member had asked us to do a mock, but he was just joking, and he ended up saying, hey, I was just joking there. Dave Colvin. So Dave Colvin was being sarcastic with it. That's why he did it in all caps. But he's not the only one that sprung it up. There's been several people going, hey, man, we need to do a mock draft. We'll do it, Again, it's important to kind of handle everything in order, too. The first thing that's going to come into play is, all right, who's going to be back on the roster as a Packer, right? That's already on the roster or was on the roster here in 2024. And it really starts with those contract restructures too. And one of those obviously at the forefront is Jaire Alexander. This is Brian Gutekunst speaking on Jaire Alexander earlier today. Tom Silverstein tweeted out, General Manager Brian Gutekunst said there's frustration from both sides with cornerback Jaire Alexander's situation, but there's no disconnect between the two sides. He said they can afford him this year, and that's not an issue. So, when you read that, there's multiple layers to it, I think. I think Gutey's trying to guard his words pretty closely. What he's saying is, hey, look, there's nothing really wrong with the contract. The problem is he's not been on the field is kind of what it feels like. Now, that's not an issue. He said they can afford him, and that's not an issue. He said there's no disconnect between the two sides, but there's frustration from both sides. I don't know. When you kind of reverse engineer this, it does to me feel like everything we said all along, there's probably going to be a restructure asked for. And if Ja says, nope, not changing anything, which I think he will because he's got less guaranteed money. That's why many people, when they hear us say that, they think you mean he's got to take a pay cut? No, it may look like a pay cut on paper, but he's actually getting more guaranteed money if you restructure some of the base salary to signing bonus, which we've talked about all the time here. So what do you guys think? Let's go around the horn with that one. Let's start with Tim here, then we'll go Jacob, then we'll get Emilio's take on it here with the Jaire Alexander situation.
Welcome in, Emilio.
Thank you. Thank you. Hit it, Tim.
I think with Gutey's statement here, I mean, frustration from both sides. So clearly, right? Packers are probably frustrated that he's, hasn't been available. It is what it is. And Ja's probably frustrated that he hasn't been able to play. And kind of, a little bit of question marks in that cornerback room now after the way this year ended. But I think the thing that I gather is Gutey saying there's no disconnect between the two sides. So maybe Ja, coming back from the Philly game and doing locker clean out and stuff like that was the reason why, I don't have anything nice to say. I'm not going to say anything. That was just maybe the best way he was able to handle, saying no comment, because there isn't a complete breakdown. There's obviously open line of communication. But I think at the end of the day, when you're talking about an extension here, I do think that that's something that's going to be, presented, a possible restructure, and see or not an extension, but a restructure conversation will happen. It's just a matter of, how receptive Jaire is to that idea. Because at the end of the day, if he doesn't want to be a Packer anymore, then I don't think any of us would want him to stay here and play out that contract. So I trust Gutey to do what's best for the team and not what's necessarily best for Jaire. And that's what can be tough when you're trying to be a GM and take care of your players, but also take care of the franchise, which is the big picture and the most important. So I don't know. I don't know if this gives us any new information other than that at least there's definitely no reason to believe that there's, no conversations being had between the two sides.
Yeah. Jacob?
Yeah, I just think that there's obviously something going on with Jaire, and I think it might be mostly ego. And I think that because if you look at there's really no reason. .com says it here. What the HE double hockey sticks does Ja have to be frustrated with? He's been getting millions to not play, and obviously that's pretty blunt. But I kind of understand that. Jason Wise says kind of the same thing. He says, "What does Ja have to be upset with the Packers about? He's the one that hasn't been playing." I understand that as well. Ari Yarnmeyer must restructure part-time play. That to me is my sentiment right now. I think he is he's a guy that wants to be treated kind of like a diva, in my opinion. And I think that when X came in here, that's another thing Jason Y mentioned. He goes, I think having X back there allowed the linebackers to focus on stopping the run. I think that having X back there put a lot of pressure on Jaire, even if he wasn't going to admit it. And we've got younger guys that have shown that they're willing to at least that they've had some decent numbers with Stokes, even Ballantyne, even Nixon. I have similar thoughts about Nixon that I do with Jaire right now. So, with Gutekunst saying what he said, I think he doesn't talk just to talk. He doesn't do a lot of coach speak. There's usually something below Gutekunst.
Brian Gutekunst.
I just think they're where there's smoke, there's fire. I feel like right now with these specific players, and that's just what I think.
Got it. Emilio.
I think that's fair. Kind of when I was listening to it, frustration from both sides being Ja's mad that he's not on the field. Packers are mad that Ja's not on the field. I mean, that's just that would be like you're paying the employee to sit there and kind of watch, and everyone else is building the retaining wall, right? But it's tough because dude got hurt on the job, so exactly. doesn't he get workers' comp? That's kind of where you looking at it business wise, but yeah, there's feelings in it too. But I really don't. When he said there was no disconnect in how he said it, I really think that they could square it away, and it really could not be a problem. If X is looking at this team like, hey, we were close this year, or I'm sorry, Ja was looking at this team, we were close this year, and I wasn't even playing, dude, I could spark this team. If you got that kind of mentality as a player and you want to bring that spark, bring that fire, I think that he would maybe say, hey, let's go and get a ring or two if I take a pay cut and make this happen. I already got X next to me. I actually have a safety back here now. Our linebackers, did you see the way Coop played? I think that's how you got to kind of look at it, and maybe Ja's, taking a peek like that.
Yeah, I can see that. Dan Mullen with the super chat. Thank you so much, buddy. He says, I transplanted to Milwaukee when I was in my early 20s and worked the night shift for over 5 years. Listening to Euchre brought me back to baseball. Thank you all for paying him homage. Absolute legend. And Dan, like we said at the top of the show here, man, I was born and raised in Kentucky, and we never had any Milwaukee games telecast, and I never heard Bob Euchre call a game. I heard him on Major League, and I'm like, this dude is just, like Tim said, Mr. Baseball. This guy, you could see even in the movie the passion he had for the game. And you're welcome for us doing that. And thank you for the super chat, man. He's an amazing man. He's going to be missed, no doubt about that. I'll tell you who ain't going to be missed because he's going to be in Green Bay for a while, though, is Mr. Josh Jacobs. Huge season for Josh Jacobs as PFF Fantasy and Betting put this tweet out. 1,410 yards rushing, 1,113 yards after contact.
That's brutal.
He rushed for 1,100 plus yards after contact.
Here's the guy.
34 rushes of 10 yards or more. When you guys hear us talk about explosive plays and charting the explosive plays on Chalk Talk, that's what an explosive run is 10 yards or more. He had 34 of those this year. So you guys help me do the math. 17 games, he averaged 2 explosive runs per game, right? And he pretty much played in every game. So he didn't miss a game, did he?
Nope.
That's wild.
16 tutters. That's pretty much a touchdown a game.
Yeah.
Just about. Yeah.
79 missed tackles forced. Like, this dude's a dog. So glad he's a Packer. And, of course, we talked about him kind of showing respect to the military earlier, too. Really, really cool there. So
I like what Ari Ironminer said there. After contact yards is just so clutch. Run through a MFer's face, right? Like we always say.
Thick.
Yes, he is.
That in 4.5 missed tackles of games forced. I mean, that is unbelievable. I mean, you are leaving kids with broken ankles, or you're leaving a dude sideways on the floor.
He's making all pro defensive guys look like pee-wee football players.
Yeah, it's like he's just got a joystick in his hand, and he's just doing Jacob. All Jacob used to do was a spin move all the way down the field when he was playing Madden.
Spin left, spin right, spin left, spin right. And if I fumble, I'm cutting the game off. Right?
Yeah. Oh, shutting it off before it's saved. Definitely.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, again, Josh Jacobs doing amazing things this year for the Green Bay Packers. All right. Another cool thing that came down the pike here came from someone I'm not following, but it showed up on the timeline. I thought this was really cool. Look at this cat right here. Look at this Playboy. Gary Wolfel. Hope I'm saying that right. Go give him a follow at GERYWOELFEL. Rasheed Walker was picked in the last round of the 2022 NFL Draft. He played just one game as a rookie. This season, Walker started every game at left tackle and seldom took a play off. In fact, Walker's snap count percentage was 99.17%. That was the highest percentage of any Packer on offense or defense. A tip of the hat to Walker for his determination and perseverance. Of course, when I
Thick.
Availability and accountability. Rasheed Walker from the 7th round, boys. I mean, you want to talk about good Gutey pick. That's another reason I'm telling you. I'm not saying trade all your picks all the way back in the 7th round. Don't get me wrong. But just another example of how you found a starter in the 7th round. Why do we gotta press into that first round pick all the time? Like someone said earlier on Twitter to me, they said, I think this is the year we need to trade up in the draft. Okay, I can see that if the right thing falls into place, but think of it. We're picking 23rd. Let's say you traded up 10 spots to 13. We took LV in at 13. Right. It's not a guarantee that you get just an absolute dog at 13. You're inside the top 5. If you know what the hell you're doing, you can hit on that pick pretty darn easy, right? Even the Jets didn't screw that up when they were picking up there so often. So for me, it's if you're not up that high, grab a lot of 2nd and 3rd round picks and let's take multiple swings at some of these dogs a little later. So all good says right there, trade out of the first. Now, listen, if the best player on our board and the best player on Gutey's board falls to us at 23, doubt it'll happen. But if it happens, you're pulling the trigger on that.
Right.
But if you look up and you've got a cluster of players, Emilio, we've talked about this over and over and over. You look up and you got 6 or 7 players with the same grade. Hey, let's trade back, pick up a pick, and we're still going to get the pick of the litter more likely in that little cluster.
Do you guys really think that Gutey would not pick in the first round when the Packers are hosting the draft? And I really mean that.
No, and Jacob, that was in the comments. I could give a rat's ass that it's in Green Bay. It's about.
I don't care either. I'm just saying, would the optics just not? I mean,
I don't think Gutey gives a damn. I think he's going to do what the hell he needs to do for the team.
Jacob,
That would
you're
be-
telling me
that would be the most Gutey thing ever, right?
Oh, it
Everybody's
would.
out there shivering, like, come on, make the call. And the Packers have traded back. Son of a.
See you on Friday.
Yeah, we'll get an extra this year second and maybe pick up a third and a fourth for next year or something, or maybe 2 this year, 1 next year, something like that.
You guys know I was Captain Trade Back. I'm still cool with it. I'm a bargain shopper, guys.
I'm slapping
More
5
pick.
yellow. I'm slapping 5 yellow stickers on that 23rd pick and asking who wants it on the 22nd pick because someone's going to want somebody still.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And Jacob, you again, man, you're going to hear some boos if we're standing out there in that crowd in Green Bay and they trade back. Tim, you know it. They're going to be some boo birds. I'm going to be cheering. I'm going to be toasting them. But,
yeah, right.
Yeah,
We'll be like a few of the 11 people there that are like
Just cheering.
trading
Oh
down.
yeah, right where the camera pans to the one group up front. Yeah.
The question is who's going to get the boo birds more, Roger Goodell or Gutey when he trades out of the first round?
exactly. That's exactly right. All right, moving along here. Some other news that broke. I just tweeted out Matt LaFleur's newly constructed defensive staff is getting all kinds of attention. The Atlanta Falcons, we have interviewed Derek Ansley for our defensive coordinator opening. So,
Whoa! Watch yourself there.
So wait a minute.
Derek,
So, is that Halfley? Is Halfley leaving? Tell me it ain't so, Joe.
We don't know yet.
Halfley left, Jacob. You didn't hear
Shut
this?
up. Shut up.
He said, shut up. Derek Ansley, obviously, right? He was a DC with the LA Chargers, and we went out. I'm pretty sure it was the Chargers, yeah, under I can't even remember the knucklehead.
He was the defensive passing game coordinator for the Chargers.
Yeah, this year, right. Oh, no, he was the
Before
DC.
Green Bay, yeah.
He was the DC with the Chargers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was the DC there, and then obviously we hire him as the passing game coordinator and defensive backs coach. So he's getting some looks. So this isn't like, wow, this dude's coming out of nowhere. He's got defensive coordinator experience, right? So, again, I think it's a testament to Matt LaFleur, and it's amazing how many people rake Matt LaFleur over the coals in the last part of the season. Jeff Halfley gets all this praise for this defensive staff that's put together. Guys, this was Matt LaFleur's doing. Matt LaFleur handpicked Jeff Halfley, and he was right there with Jeff Halfley through the entire process, putting this defensive coaching room together. So as much credit as we give to Jeff Halfley for the success they all had and the jobs they may potentially be promoted to at other organizations, Matt LaFleur was the mastermind behind that whole thing. So that I just want to say that's my 2 cents. I don't think I think everybody's just bypassing Matt LaFleur like he didn't have nothing to do with this. I think that's crazy. So, but again, Derek Ansley getting this interview. You boys have the floor. What do you think about it?
Damn it. That's what I think.
Sums it up. Right?
I was so excited when he came to town last year, and I just love the way that he coaches the guys. Man, he's he's an X's and O's guy and a schemer, but he's also a hands-on developmental kind of coach, real well-rounded, and knows how to communicate, especially with the younger players. It's really fun to watch him work, and if we lose him, man, we're going to notice that for sure. So, but you wish him the best, right? A move up is a move up, regardless of where you were or where you're at. I mean, that's the whole goal, right? Onward and upward. So you wish him the best. But, again, it's important to remember these are just interviews, like everyone and their mom's getting interviewed right now. This is what happens this time of year. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to get hired. Same thing with Halfley. Halfley, I'm sure, may get more than one interview at some point, but it doesn't necessarily mean that these guys are leaving. But if anything, it tells you how well we constructed our staff here in Green Bay because, multiple coaches are getting multiple looks by other teams here for, serious promotion. So it says a lot about your position coaches and your coordinators for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when you build a squad like that, and I was hoping that we weren't going to get poached, but I mean, the fact that this keeps popping up, they're seeing what we're doing. We were the third place team. We couldn't hide our 11-6 record. You know what I mean? Close on the wins and had tough on the 14-win team. So I think that it's obviously a good thing for our team just because that our skill and our areas are growing. Tough that they got to go at some point, they got to go out and get their money, provide for their family too.
Yep. Definitely. Jacob, you got anything to add to this other than stay away from Derek Ansley?
No, I'm good. I It
you
is
need to stay out of that private chat, buddy. We're trying to run a professional program here.
It is interesting to see how the turntables, as Michael Scott says,
The turntable is tatted.
because I mean, just nobody wanted anything to do with the coaching staff that was, in Green Bay on the defensive side of the ball for quite a while, quite a long while, and all of a sudden they're starting to poach and shark and look for interviews. I think that it's pretty clear what happened. Brenton Cox Jr. went to this defense, and all of a sudden, the coaches are getting interviewed. I'm just saying, it all comes back to Cox.
Here's a guy.
That reminds me of when I'm trying to think of who it was. It was a quarterback coach or an OC back in the day after Aaron just had an amazing year. Got an interview with someone, and he said, "Hey, make sure you put me on your resume." I laughed. Well, how the turntables. So, other news that came down the pike here. This is pretty big news, fellas. This happened right before we went live here, as defensive line coach Jason Rebrovich is out in Green Bay. Rob Demovsky tweeted out, the Packers have let defensive line coach Jason Rebrovich go, according to a source. Went on to say Rebrovich coached outside linebackers under the previous coordinator Joe Barry and moved to D-line this past season under new coordinator Jeff Hafley. So obviously he was more fit for outside linebackers in the 34 front, and they tried him at, hey, let's go to the entire defensive line. Now they bring in Ogabasi from Boston College along with Jeff Hafley to kind of help as an assistant. I think they're going to look to hire outside of the building for defensive line coach, but Ogabasi's probably sitting there in case that they don't get what they're looking for on the market. Then they can just promote him to defensive line coach. And I believe Mike Ebring here mentioned in the chat. Appreciate you, Mike. Good to see you in there, buddy. He says the Packers are scheduled to interview Jets defensive lineman coach Aaron Whitecotton for their defensive line position per league source. So they're, this is already kind of that effect of Robert Saleh, right?
Yep.
Robert Saleh probably said, hey, one of my best young coaches over there, this dude right here, go get an interview. So, and listen, compare our defensive line play this year to the Jets defensive line play over the last 3 years.
Oh, yeah. Night and day.
Yeah. Big difference, right? Big difference.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, training camp's going to be a little quieter next year for sure.
Tell them why, Tim. Tell them why.
I mean, Reb is known for the just the F-bomb machine. We'll just put it like that. That guy does not need a microphone or anything. You can hear him literally blocks away as you walk towards the facility. And I guess we know why, right? Maybe he was screaming so much because the guys weren't getting it done like they were supposed to. But I think Reb has got a bright future ahead of himself as a drill instructor or, something, whatever he decides to do next. But yeah, man, he was always known for keeping the piss hot, as we say at practice. So it'll be a little quieter, but we'll see who they bring in. You never know. We might get another hard-nosed coach for the D-line. That's what you want, right, for your defensive guys anyway? You want someone to bring that fire a little bit?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You got something to share with the class, Jacob?
Yeah, Jacob.
No, go ahead, Emilio. You go ahead. I know Jacob's head's in his.
No, I was just saying, Gutey was saying in his interview, just sort of the fact that, we do have a lot of talent there on the D line. The first time that, the outside backers, the tackles and, the edges kind of work together this year compared to last. So I think, he kind of expects them to sort of turn it up. Maybe let's find, what's going to work for that team, what's going to work for them being ready. I think that's a good thing to chase this offseason.
Yeah, completely agree, man. And again, thank you, Mike Ebring, for providing that information there. Let's run through the chat real quick. I know we got a bunch marked from earlier. Let's go ahead and hit these, and then we'll get into some other stuff we want to cover here. Reef in the chat, I bet we're going to talk about Gutey's presser. Goot says he liked the way the Packers played, also mentioned some special teams guys. I was taken back. I'm not. Again, you won 11 games with the youngest roster in the league. Your quarterback battled an MCL for pretty much at least the first half of the season. Some would argue that the groin and the MCL bothered him in the second half as well. You had your number one receiver was banged up this year a little bit, and he played in 15 games. He goes down the most important part of the season. Romeo Dobbs battled concussion, obviously concussion injuries all year long. You could go all the way across the board. Evan Williams being out, right? He emerged as, hey, this young playmaker, and he's going to be a vital part of the organization there with the secondary. He goes out with injuries. Jaire Alexander pretty much missed all the year, the entire year for the most part, right? I mean, I guess he played less than half. How many games did Jaire actually play in?
9, 8.
Was it 9? Okay, so probably played right about.
Don't
50.
Quote me. I'm guessing something like that.
It felt like that, right? Like he was out at least half the year. It seemed like. On down, and I know those same people go, every team deals with those injuries. Okay, not every team is the youngest team in the league either. Now, what was the other thing? The drops, right? With the receiving core, we got the cheapest receiving room in the league. We can't overlook those things, right? So I think Gutey's looking at it and being honest and going, dang, for the youngest team in the league, and we're set to be. We finished at $14 million under the cap, carrying a huge cap penalty. Like, what else can you expect? You got better this year. You literally got better. The offense is top 10. The defense is now top 10 officially. Some would argue both are top 5, and I can understand that on both sides. But
it was he played week 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8. So that would be 6 weeks, and then he played 10 snaps in week 11.
Is this right? That's Josh Martin just said that. He said Jaire hasn't played in more than 7 games in 4 years.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I mean, if that's true,
it's
I'm
less
sorry.
than 50%. Yeah.
I can't. That me no like you that, Jan.
Yeah, and listen, that's not a dig at Jaire. That's not to question his manhood or anything. From a business standpoint, you've got to step back and go, is this worth it moving forward, right? And
injuries are a part of the game, right? And that goes both ways, right? You can't get mad at a player for putting his body on the line and getting hurt, but also the player can't get mad at the organization for figuring out what the hell to do when you're not available. That's how it is, right?
Right.
Definitely. All right, so there you go with that. Anything? Let's see. We got a couple more chats we got marked in here, don't we? Man, the chat is on fire tonight. Holy cow!
Yeah, they're going hard.
All right, we already hit that one, right? Packers Kingdom. I just did a mock draft. Right now, we should see about receivers, Clayton. We hit on receivers pretty heavily earlier today. Kind of talked about the draft class. I've got 3 receivers earmarked that I really like. Those names are Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. You've got Jalen Royals out of Utah State, and I also like Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, albeit Trey Harris is pretty undersized. So when it comes to the free agent market, I would prefer Chris Godwin over T. Higgins. That's just me because I think you can get him much cheaper than T. Higgins. And Chris Godwin was a dog before he dislocated that ankle. It's my understanding he's going to be good to go week 1, no problem. Training camp, everything, right?
Right, yeah. They said that he could have made it back potentially if they had a late postseason run this year.
There you go. So, yeah, as far as receivers, look, I think it's on the radar with Christian Watson being banged up. You can't roll out Devonte Adams either, right? And matter of fact, let me pull this up real quick. Let me pull that tweet up I did with the mock draft earlier, and then we'll dive into some specific positions here. I want to get your all's take on this look, and I explained why I did everything that I did on this mock. And, again, this isn't to go, you guys think this is the best mock on the intrawebs right now? That's not the point. The point is walking through different scenarios of what they may or may not do with the roster leading up to the draft, okay? And here's what I said. I said, first of many mock drafts, with this scenario, the Packers move on from Jaire Alexander. So imagine Jaire Alexander is not on the team, all right? We sign wide receiver Chris Godwin or get Devonte Adams back to Green Bay. I said no more than $13 million average annual value on either of those guys, okay? So you're keeping the cap hit on average somewhere $13 million or less. I'm good with it. When you get upwards of $13 million, me no likey that, Jan. Don't like it, right? I said sign center Drew Dalman from Atlanta, no more than $8 million average annual value. Now you fix your center position. Elton can stay intact at left guard, and now you've got extra depth there with Sean Ryan and Jordan Morgan at guard before the draft, right? Walter Nolan gives you competition for Wyatt at 3 tech. Here's the draft. So what I did was I traded down, surprise, surprise, from number 23. I traded number 23 and number 87 for number 29 and number 56. So what we did was we traded back 6 spots in the first and then back up from the third to an extra second rounder at the 56th spot. Okay. Walter Nolan out of
Here's the guy.
That's my dude. That's the D tackle I'm probably most excited about. Walter Nolan is ranked 34th according to PFF's big board. His PFF grade last year was an 88.3. So, and he played over 400 snaps at the 3 tech, meaning he lined up in the B gap. And that's what you're looking for to play opposite of Kenny. And again, going back up to the original tweet, Walter Nolan gives you competition for Wyatt at 3 tech. Wyatt may be the dude. He might be the dude. But here's what you're doing. You're adding depth, right? You're creating more competition. And who knows? Walter Nolan come in there and boat race him for the 3-tech spot. Now you don't extend him and you're good to go. That's kind of the way I would approach that. That's why I would want Devonte Wyatt to play this final year out. 2 reasons. You get the best version of Devonte Wyatt because he's playing for his football career in a contract year, and you did not give him the 5th-year option, and I'm okay with paying for those donuts. But also Walter Nolan is going to be able to step in there and kind of build that competition, right? And if you got your 3-tech in the future, and now what you do is in the next year or so, you're looking to move on from Kenny, and now you find your 1-tech. You just continue that rotation until you find those 2 guys that are absolute studs. Let me stop there before we finish the rest of the draft. What do you guys think about those first 3 points there? Jaire being gone. Again, it's not a prediction. We're just laying out the scenario. Chris Godwin or Devonte Adams, let's start with that. Would you guys be okay with that, or do you see a better option in your opinion? I don't care who goes first.
Go ahead, Jacob.
Yeah, if we have to sign a big name player, I think those are the 2 that stand out by far, especially just with the fit. Obviously, we know what Devonte brings to the table. Godwin seems like more of those quiet, humble, more just lunch pail type wide receivers that are going to come in and do the work and probably be a decent leader in the locker room is what I'd hope for both of those guys. I think those are the best options. I want to move on from Jaire personally, just as a business decision. It's nothing personal. And then as far as Drew Dahlman goes, I don't quite know who that is, but I like it. Is that the best free agent right now? I'm assuming
at center. Yeah, pretty
From
much.
the Falcons.
Yeah. Here's what you got.
He was like us. What was his grade again?
Drew Dahlman's PFF grade last year was a 78.8 in Atlanta. There's a guard, Tristan Colon Castillo, as graded out a 71 in Arizona. But again, he's a guard they're saying can play center. And then you had Ryan Kelly, 31 years old, a 67 PFF grade. Coleman Shelton, 29 years old, 66 PFF grade. And Brock Hoffman, 66.3 out of Dallas. He's also a guard. So it's really 2. But Drew Dahlman, hands down, in my opinion, before any roster cuts happen, before the deadlines, I feel like Drew Dahlman's hands down the best center on the market. It doesn't mean you overpay for him, though, right?
Right. That'd be personally in there. I love that $8 million cap hit there is what you're thinking per year. Is that what you're comfortable with? Okay. And I mean, that'd be ideal right there. And then as far as your newbies and your rookies, I'm excited to look into those guys, but I definitely have heard of Zy Alexander, Kobe Bryant, and seems like some people in the chat knew about Nolan. So
yeah, Walter Nolan's
how are you going to go wrong with Kobe Bryant? I mean,
you can't
just draft
Mamba, baby.
Plus we get to go Kobe.
Kobe.
That's what we've been waiting for, Jacob. But yeah, no, I think that maybe Gutey just keeps staying young at wide receiver, takes another shot or 2, and just says we have what we need, and save that $13 million. You never know. But yeah, it's a great idea. If Tate does come, I'm for it. But I could also see him going the other way and say, hey, screw it, I'm just going to stay young there, and maybe we can pull the trigger, like you said, on that center, bring him in, solidify that, so we know heading in we can bring in some D-line talent and maybe somebody to help the secondary, maybe a backer or 2. I think that might good plan. I like it.
Yeah, and again, Zy Alexander starts at cornerback outside. Majority of his reps were outside, 6'2", and he had an 84.6 coverage grade, so got good size there. Also, I said we fixed the lack of depth at offensive line. We've seen in the Philly game, Jordan Morgan returning inside along with 2 rookies. Those 2 rookies that we drafted were Charles Grant out of William and Mary and Chase Lunt out of Connecticut.
What are the odds that if we draft Zy Alexander that he rocks 23 and nobody's got to buy new jersey?
That'd be hilarious. That would be awesome.
See, now we're thinking outside of the box, boys. That's what I'm talking about.
I knew Jacob would love that, right?
Packers would never let that happen. They're changing that number ASAP.
So with this prospect, Charles Grant here, he's a true left tackle, if I remember correctly. Okay, so he's a true left tackle. When was the last time we drafted a true left tackle and tried to play him on the inside? It was last year with Jordan Morgan, right? So you've got a little precedent there. Some people go, all right, he's a left tackle. Say it again, knucklehead. How many times are we going to do this?
All Gutey was talking about in his presser was how the line was, mobile and can play different spots and play different. He's like, we're lucky that we have 4 or 5 guys that can probably play every position on this line. He said Zach Tom included. He said, we thought he could probably be a good center for us if needed, but right now he's obviously setting his feet as a great tackle in the league. But you're exactly right, Clay.
And William and Mary, listen, they're not playing a bunch of powerhouses, right? But he dominated 90.1 PFF grade. Charles Grant had. And then the other tackle we took was Chase Lunt. If I remember correctly, he played right tackle the majority of the time. So there what you have is you've got a guy who has left tackle experience that could, like you said, you're looking to kick inside if you need to, but he can be the backup left tackle, and you get your backup right tackle, and you don't have to worry about the whole Kadeem Telford thing happening again, right? And who was the other guy? Andre Dillard didn't see.
No, come on now, my boy Travis Glover can get that reps too. So just why don't you?
Are you really going here? Are you really going here, Emilio? Can you remind us what his PFF grade was against Philly?
Subpar,
Yeah.
but
We'll take it. We'll just leave it at that.
yeah.
So those are the two offensive linemen I was kind of looking at there. Did Jacob have to run?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't see that shenanigans in the private chat?
I bet he had the popo knocking on the door is what it was. All right. So Jay Higgins out of Iowa, really, really interesting prospect there at linebacker. As I had said earlier, obviously Iowa's always got a dominant defense, really, really good there. I said, bring back Eric Wilson, okay, and then you add Jay Higgins to replace McDuffie, and Hopper's role gets expanded there, right? So that kind of fills out your linebacker room if you approach it that way as well. And then for that last pick, just kind of best available. Well, I'm sorry, Kobe Bryant was really interesting. We talked to him. How about getting a backup slot corner, right? So you can keep Keyshawn on the outside. Yep. Well, Kobe Bryant, 6'1". He had 100+ combined snaps between the slot and the box, 80.9 PFF, but his run defense grade, 91.3. You put him in the slot and just let him kind of play inside technique and look to stop that run. Your run defense is going to stay solid again. And again, I believe in Javon Bullard as a slot. He played significantly better than safety. But here's just another way to get another guy depth on the roster with a run defense grade like that too. I imagine he would be decent on special teams, right? So
I think it's a good look, especially if we're going to want to keep Keyshawn on the boundary going forward. And if something happens with Bull, like say Bull's got to go back to safety, we don't have to move Keyshawn. We'll have a contingency plan there. And like you said, we don't really miss. We don't take a step back, especially in the run fit. We got another physical slot corner that can step in there. So I like that approach.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think we always have to, be on the lookout for a slot just because it's such an important position. We've struggled, being inside the middle of the field. I think that's big. Coming back to my previous point of Glover being the man, Adam Block says Glover can make a jump. Absolutely. That was the worst game for him to come into. That's the truth.
That's a great point.
JJ McQuaid said Glover's like putting a sack of potatoes at left guard. Joe said Glover sucks, man, was terrified. Brent in Indiana said that he peed himself. And Jen Wright was brought my point to text. According to Wall, the rookie tackle has good footwork. And you're dragging that guy into a high-stress scenario. When was the last time he played guard? I don't even think we put him in at guard last time. So give the kid a break. And, one of those calls was kind of And
look who he was up against, too.
Yeah, exactly. The next guy got worked, too.
High stress situations, boys. I don't have a good solid base when I come down that steps at 11:30 and forget I took the trash down. Man, he's on my ass. You know what I mean? I get a little nervous too.
Can you be happy about it? A little bit of good footwork in that high stress situation. If you fall back to your fundamentals, even when you're in those high stress situations, that's what it's all about. If there's a solid base there that we can build on, that's all I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll cede my point now.
All right. I yield my time, Congressman. All right, that's going to do it for hour one. For those of you listening on the pod, we'll see you on the other side for hour two. We appreciate y'all.